Egypt's Coptic Christian community is in mourning after dozens were killed yesterday when a fire swept through a Cairo church. A mass funeral was held for the victims of the fire, many of whom were children. At least 41 people died and dozens more were injured. Rebecca Collard joins us now from Beirut with the latest on this. Rebecca, we just saw some of the grieving families. You're reporting on this over the weekend. What more reaction are we getting to this tragedy?
Yeah, John, for the most part, what we're hearing from Egypt's Christian community is really this outpouring of grief. And if we look at these images of this funeral that was held yesterday, what you see is just coffin after coffin being brought into this church in Baba, which is, not technically a neighborhood of Cairo, but very much operates as a neighborhood of Cairo and one of Cairo's poorest neighborhoods. And you can see here these families so upset, so angry, grabbing onto the coffins, people screaming. So really there's this outpouring of grief from this quite close-knit community, John. But there's also a lot of questions which I think are raising anger for some. One thing, of course, is about how this electrical fire started. So this is not really unusual in Egypt, that electrical fire. There was one in a hospital during the pandemic that killed several people. And a lot of people are pointing to the fact that building codes in the country are not enforced. And because of that, this fire that started could have been possibly prevented. And the other thing that we're hearing that I think is making people angry is that some people are saying there was only one exit to this church. And, we've been hearing estimates that range from a few hundred to as many as 5,000 people are supposed to have been inside this church. And it's really difficult to know, John, how many people were in there and whether or not there really was one exit. But what we do know is that there was definitely not enough fire exits for people to exit quickly. And so I think there's anger about that and questions about, how this fire started, whether it was preventable, and why there was not better safety routes to get out of this building, John.
Well, let's talk about that in terms of the possible causes. The Coptic community has been the focus of attacks in the past, but this, from what we know so far, appears to have been some kind of tragic accident.
Yeah, like you're saying, John, since the uprising started in Egypt and under the current authoritarian regime, and really the previous authoritarian regime as well, Egypt's Coptic Christians, which make up about 10% of the community in Egypt, have come under attack many times. However, there doesn't seem to be any indication that that was the situation this time. What we are hearing, and it's a relatively consistent story from security sources, church officials, and eyewitnesses that were actually at the scene, is that there seems to have been an electrical fire, possibly inside of an air conditioning unit, that when that fire started, people panicked. There was, as I said, many people inside this church. They tried to leave. There was a stampede. Many people were trampled. And then according to local media, apparently many of the people that died actually died from smoke inhalation. So I think we'll probably have more details in the next few days. There is a investigation being led by the Egyptian government. But so far what we're hearing is that this was an electrical fire, likely negligence of some sort, but no attack on the Coptic community, John.
Rebecca, thanks for this. Rebecca Collard reporting from Beirut.